Hello everyone and welcome back. All the final parts of the puzzle have arrived for this engine, so let's get it all back together and back in the car. So yes, hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining me once again. As I said in the intro, all the final parts to this puzzle have arrived. The first being this genuine Toyota thermostat. I got it from the Netherlands and it was about £30 delivered, but it was only about £5 more expensive than going for some kind of non-genuine one in the UK. So the postage cost was about £6, but like I said, it was worth it overall, and it genuinely is a genuine Toyota thermostat, which I am super happy about. So that's going to go back in there. We've also got the second-hand starter motor that arrived this week, which I'm super chuffed about because, again, that was only £25, considering I absolutely smashed mine to bits trying to get it out of the gearbox. Really pleased that that's now arrived. And finally, the biggest part that I'm super happy about getting is this stainless manifold. Now, I'll be honest with you, performance benefits, probably not, but it's a damn sight better than my original manifold and any other second-hand pile of rubbish manifold that I'd have been able to pick up, rusty, whereas this is a nice, shiny stainless steel, so it should last for a long, long time. So, as I said, first of all, what we're going to do is I'm going to bung in this brand new genuine thermostat, then we can start bolting the starter motor and the manifold, then we can actually start getting this thing back into the car. So 5 minutes into the job already and I have my first fail. This thing is the wrong size, it's obviously the wrong part. This is probably for a new MR2, not the SW20. So that might as well go in the bin. So what I'm going to concentrate on next is putting in the starter motor. Okay, so with the starter motor now in place, and obviously that issue I've had with the thermostat, the last thing I want to fit to this engine before I put it back in the car is this manifold. Now the first thing I have got to do though is blank this off. Now this manifold was actually originally for the 3S FE engine, and there was some kind of sensor that would fit in here, a bit like a temperature sensor. Not quite a lambda sensor, which is what's going to go in this place here, but yeah, some kind of exhaust gas temperature sensor. So I'm going to get that blanked off, we'll stick this on the engine, then we can put this engine back in the car once again. Okay, so the engine is back into the car. It's being held on by the two side engine mounts, so that does allow the engine to still rock front to back, but I'm really not fussed because all I'm going to be doing now is spending all my time putting everything back together on this engine and back on this car. Obviously I've had to remove the suspension units of each of these rear quarters, so I've got to fit all them. I've got some lovely coilovers, brand spanking new ones to fit in place of the original suspension. Now I've been dying to get them on the car, and now that we're actually starting to put everything back onto this car, this is the prime time to start putting them in. But obviously I've still got other bits to do before I get anywhere near there. I need to put the subframe back in, put the exhaust on, and just plumb everything back together on this engine. So that's what I want to do now. I want to jack up the car and start concentrating on the bulk of the work underneath. However, there is a couple of bits over there which I need my attention before we can actually start putting everything back on. Okay, so as I was saying, obviously when we're putting this car back together, this whole entire suspension unit has got to go back in place at the same time. However, here are my brand spanking new coilovers, which are going to go in place of these absolutely awful shocks and springs. So this one in particular has a cracked spring, or some of it is even missing, and it's just generally in really bad, crusty condition. So these are going to be a well worth upgrade. Yes, I probably could have gone down the route of just replacing the springs. The shocks don't actually look too bad themselves. However, for the same sort of money, I managed to pick up these HSD coilovers. So I'm really happy that they are going to go in place of this hideous shock and spring. However, what I really want to do first is concentrate on putting things like this back together. So as I said in the previous video, when I was taking all of this off the car to get the engine out, these CV boots and CV joints were already in a pretty bad way. So these boots were already split and were leaking oil. So obviously I would have had to replace these anyway, but what I did was split this apart so I could actually get the engine out a lot easier. This did not want to come off the hub whilst it was in place. So once I took it all off, I managed to get it out and jobs are good. But I really need to replace this now and put it all back together with my brand new CV boot kit. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to put these CV boots back together, same with that one over there, so that way, once we're plumbing everything back in, I won't have to stop midway through the progress and put these things back together. This way we can now just do one foul swoop, put everything back in, put the subframe in, put the suspension units back in, whilst we're plumbing in all the engine. Okay, so that is now both drive shafts pretty much good as new. New boots and lots of grease. This one in particular was really seized and really rusty, so I actually gave that a really good clean. Hopefully that'll be okay. But these are now ready to go back in the car, which means I can now start bolting things in like the suspension. I can then put the subframe on. So these are a real key item for me getting this engine back together. Okay, so both rear assemblies are now installed. Both drive shafts are now installed. These hub assemblies and suspension units are super heavy when you've still got the disc, caliper, and I've still got these arms attached. That was really, really hard work trying to wiggle them on whilst putting the drive shaft in, whilst trying to attach it to the coilover. But we're there, both of them are now on. There's still a few bits I want to do with these hub assemblies, like this rear arm here is pretty bent, as you can see. That side over there is absolutely fine, but I've got a second-hand one for this. But I'm going to start tackling bits like that once the subframe is back on. Once the subframe is back on, I can literally attach all of these arms on both sides, as well as that third engine mount there. So that's what I really want to do next, is put the subframe on, and then that way I can start really tidying up all these loose ends. Okay, so trying to get absolutely everything buttoned up under here, and unfortunately, whilst I've been installing this exhaust system, I've noticed a little bit of an issue. So this down pipe, or link pipe, which would have joined from the manifold here to my back box, is wrong. Well, actually, it's not wrong. What's going on is this would have been a decap pipe. So this comes along here. This section here is where any catalytic converters may have sat. Now this car is actually too old for a catalytic converter, so it would have just been a link pipe just like this anyway. But the back box system that I've got as well is also trying to be a decat system. And it's taken the exhaust out of these two back boxes and would have joined at the beginning of where any catalytic converters would have sat. So basically what I've got is two completely different systems trying to be a decat in two separate areas. So this section here is just too long. Really what I need to do is get this thing sent off to an exhaust company once the car's all back together, and what they'll basically need to do is rejig this pipe by cutting that here and then putting this back on the end here. That way I think it would all fit. So obviously I can't weld, that's one thing I really want to learn how to do, but what I want to do is get everything back together. Once we are all done and the engine's running, I will take it to an exhaust place, which hopefully that won't even take them long to get this all sorted. But unfortunately it does stop me from doing it now. But what I really want to do is just finish off buttoning up everything under here. I've got a couple of suspension arms which need redoing, and I also need to replace this bent suspension arm here, which I mentioned earlier. Then pretty much everything underneath here is all done, which means we can then concentrate on plumbing everything up top. Okay, so as you can see, the back end is pretty much all back together. I've managed to lower it on the ramp. However, there still are a few suspension arms which need to be connected and replaced. However, I'm going to wait until a later date to do all that because I have the polyurethane bush kit for every single rubber bush on this car. So for example, this arm which needs to be replaced, I have these polyurethane versions of these bushes. I also have the polyurethane version of that one as well. So every single bush on this car I have a polyurethane replacement for. So that's going to take a good day, maybe even an entire weekend, cutting out all these old bushes and putting these new ones in place. So we'll probably tackle that when we start doing the likes of the front suspension, because I've still got the coilovers to fit on the front as well. As you can see, I've dropped the car down on its current rear coilovers, and there's definitely going to need to be some adjustments made as that is far too low. I don't want it quite as high as it was on stock setup, however, I don't want it this low where it's just going to become unpractical. So we will start to raise everything up. Obviously, we're going to need to spend a good day or two really going over this car and adjusting the setup, and I'll probably have to take it somewhere to get everything adjusted properly so that it's all within its tolerances and do some kind of, I don't know, fast road setup. So that's going to be definitely at a later date. However, unfortunately, that is all the time I've got for this weekend. I'm actually really pleased with all the progress because basically all the hard work underneath the car has been pretty much done. It's going to be just plumbing everything up on the top end here, connecting everything back together, and then we hopefully can start getting this thing turning over and hopefully give it its first start now it's been back into the car. So that's what we're going to be doing next time. So thank you very much for watching this episode, and I will see you in the next one.